How are you on this amazing Tuesday night?
Oh, great, great. I'm looking forward. It's going to be a great one. So we'll
Yeah,
start off on the
t
right foot, they say.
today's a special day. I want to explain something, man. So, I've
Yeah,
been doing this, the yoga thing and kind of getting more calm and drinking my tea and doing the better diet. The wife's got me on kind of a diet and all that, right? So I
there you
drank
go.
my tea today. I'm like, this isn't going to work because I'm too excited about today's episode, Dane. I'm just too giddy. So,
Right,
we do a lot of music and a lot of sports, and we get
right.
privileges every now and then to meet people that have actually been like heroes in our lives that have left a big mark on us. I look back
Right.
over this past year, Marcos, guitars from POD, Corey from Cedar, and then
Yeah,
tonight, there's a guy. I got to tell you a story, Dan. I love telling stories. Hopefully, you listen
yeah.
to it too. But my buddies and I, we dropped our first album. Thank the Lord, nobody will hear it because it's terrible, right? But we dropped our first album to a gentleman. One of the many guys we listened to was this guy named Glenn Kaiser. This guy, you want to talk about being an original rock star, kind of an OG of the movement, brings his faith as well as his guitarmanship,
Yep.
which is second to none. You take Clapton, you take Robin, you take Glenn Kaiser, and I totally mean that, kind of in that same breath. So, Dane, I can't get any more excited than I am right now. So I'm going
Yeah.
to get into it and bring on our mentor and our guest of honor, Mr. Glenn Kaiser. Glenn, how you doing, my friend?
I'm expecting snow, but it hasn't happened yet. So here we are in Chicago waiting for it.
Okay. Okay. Well, man, it's an honor. Dan and I, we say this, man. Your time is precious. We love what
Yeah.
you're doing. So we've got some questions, Glenn. Longtime fan, been listening to you, like I said, and now my kids are listening to you. We're reciprocating on to the next generation, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool. But I'm curious, Glenn. Obviously, before taking us back, Res Band, Glenn Kaiser Band, so many things that you've done, and so many amazing pieces of artwork that you put together. I'm curious, maybe when it all began. Maybe
Yeah.
in your bedroom as a teenager. When did you get the itch to start playing guitar in your life?
My
Mm.
brother was in the army in Germany, and he came home with a beat up cheapo K acoustic guitar. Didn't have a pickup
Mm.
in it, and he couldn't play. I don't know why he bought it. I mean, as he was trying, and he brought it home, just gave it to me,
Mm.
and I started messing around. I was 12 years old, and I bumped into some kids. I don't even think we weren't all even in the same school or grade at least, because some of these guys were 4 or 5 years older than me. But 13, and because I sang and I listened to the radio nonstop, I knew a lot of the hits and stuff. And
Mm.
this is back in soul R&B time, and then did some blues, right? And and it kind of went on from there. I learned, I learned from one of the younger guys in the band actually how to play on two strings at a time,
Mm.
and then eventually full chords, on guitar. But essentially, I was a singer who then learned to play guitar and bass and
Mm.
drums, and started writing songs at 13,
Wow.
and went from band to band to band, and that's kind
Yeah.
of how things got going.
Man, it's
Wow.
such the body of work, and as I've turned Dane onto your stuff, Dane's a huge blues fan as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Glenn, I'm not just saying this. I do a lot of fanboying out, but I'm serious. I don't know how you've made 50 years of amazing music and you're still at your prime. It's incredible that you
Yeah.
just keep getting better, man. It's cool. When you look at like from the Res Band days to my personal favorite song is Rain Dance. I play it on rotation 3 or 4 times a
Oh,
week. I love it. It's just there's something about the way you do this. Like before Chris Stapleton, there was Glenn Kaiser, the voice, the way
Mm.
you do it. You're singing at the top of your range, and you're bringing like content that is actually meaningful content. Dane, help me out because I'm a fanboy. Dane, take it away, man.
Yep.
So
All the stuff you've played over 50 years, all the music you started writing, singing, learning and perfecting your craft. What are some of the most memorable events that you've done or gigs or some of the things that stick out in the forefront of your mind through those years?
what comes to mind is a festival in England. About 35,000 people are jumping up and down, and most of them singing. Well, I don't know about most of them, but a large number in the front rows were. It was an outdoor show at a festival. They're singing our lyrics at us, and we're cranking away, and big honking PA, and whole thing. And honestly, no buck fever. Totally relaxed, and I mean, mental block. We're coming. I don't even remember what the song was, but all of a sudden, I completely lost track of where the heck I was. So Stu's doing a solo, guitar solo, and we're about to come back into like the third verse or whatever. and I don't know where I am. And so I mean, just I can't. The lyrics are just gone, right? And it's this song I wrote, right? And then we've done this song for years, right? I walked up to the microphone, turned the mic around, and the crowd is singing it at the top of their lungs. I'm like,
Wow.
I flipped it back, and
That's
we
great.
continued.
That's
Nobody
fantastic,
knew,
man.
but I'm telling you now. It's just there have been crazy moments, and there
That's
really have.
crazy.
I remember one night, Winnipeg. We did a lot of cross country tours, and
Mhm.
of course in the States, but in Canada. Winnipeg, there are a couple of times when different things would just go wrong early on. And one night, packed out, one of those we can do no wrong, just a sweet crowd. They had our records and they were fans. And all of a sudden, I mean, I'm sweating like a pig, right? I can't, so my eyes are shut, too much salt, right? I'm singing away. And all of a sudden, as I open my eyes to walk up to the mic to sing again, they're piling out the back door, all of them. The whole place is just emptying out. And I'm like, well, we've had our moments, but we're not that bad, And I look around and everybody, and we stopped. Everybody kind of realized at the same moment, what's up? And then we heard the fire alarms go. Our guys loaded so much smoke and explosive stuff, flash pots and all this.
Yeah.
They set off the fire alarms, and so the fire department had to come, and they filed back in. I don't think we lost anybody. Everybody pretty much filed back in again. And
Oh, that's
once the
awesome.
smoke, well, I mean, there've been like, and then there was a night also in Winnipeg. People are going absolutely nuts. I don't believe there was an opening group that night either. It was just us for like 90 minutes or 2 hours, and they're going flipping nuts. And we crank into the first song, and I've got no guitar. And I look back at the tech. We all had, I have a guitar tech, and everybody had techs. Yeah. And the bro's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and we finally figured it out. I'd left the amp on standby. I mean, it's a good idea to turn the thing on before you start a concert, knucklehead.
Air
So,
guitar.
there've been those incredible, what can I tell you?
I love that, man. Look at the history of Dane as I transition to that. Glenn, there's so many. It's amazing the amount of stories
Yeah.
that just listening to you talk. It's cool, man. Um, musicians and gigs, like gig after gig of just amazing. Like look at the body of work that you put together. And I talk about influence for a little bit. You have influenced this generation of musicians. What you do, this is what I mean. And when Dana and I kind of started doing this show, think about what you have done. You have making a kind of etched your way into this thing where I meant when I said take Clapton, you take that movement, Larry Norman, you stand for something, you know what you believe in, and you're an amazing musician. The influence is just far and wide. I'm curious, man, because I hear what I think maybe is some influences. It's kind of hard to tell. What's a couple musicians that have influenced you over your career,
Well, from day one, it was about me. And then I come to saving faith in Jesus. And, I'd been an addict. I was
Yeah.
totally no control. And I was ready to start shooting heroin. I did everything but smack, and I was ready to start running it up. I didn't like needles, but I'd done everything else. So why not?
Yes, sir.
I come to know the Lord just before I turned 18. And over a period of months, I ended up quitting the band that I was in, started to do a little folk singing, writing songs about the Lord. But there was so much of me involved. And it was just, I had to let go of it. I just had to stop. And nobody preached, I didn't read an anti-rock track from the church, none of that. I just deep conviction. So I gave all my gear to a Christian band and tore the songs up I'd written even about the Lord, and ultimately had a sense of call to ministry full time, and found that motley group of Jesus people up in Milwaukee. And we ended up, traveling and ended up in Chicago, where we've been now since '73. And so when Res Band kicked in, it was a response to a call. We had another band up in Milwaukee, and they were killer, but they were very, very mellow. But they had so many opportunities to do concerts that they had to turn down. And so really it was a practicality of call went out from the leadership. Hey, if you pray about it, and if you want to put together a group, do it. So I'm telling you, it was, for me, it was so different. And it's, I talk a lot. I think I'm pretty good with the English language. It's really hard to express the difference between what it was like before in all these years of doing concerts, and sometimes in front of several thousand people who really dug what we were doing in various bands I was in and stuff. And starting up with Res Band, very different. And we were horrible, by the way, I would say, musically on the front end. Oh my goodness. And I wasn't, I don't know what happened to me either, but I was pretty slack. And it got to a point where this is about people, and it's about the love of God and that He's changed my life. And how can we communicate in a credible way? Make great art, make serious, kicking music, whatever the style, but in that, rock, blues, bass, rock, passion. I didn't beyond the style, regardless of style. I wanted to hear if you sing "Your Baby Left You." I want to believe that you really believe and have felt what you're singing about. Because if you're not for real, then it's not going to come across. And I don't want to hear it. I don't care how good you are technically. I want to know there's heart and soul involved. Well,
Yes, sir.
When the Lord got a hold of me and Res started, I mean and to this day, and I don't do it every night, and I don't do it in every song, and I haven't done it on every song that I've been involved in as recording. And I know that, I admit that. But that's what I'm going for. Does this guy believe, or this lady, do they believe what they're singing? Do they believe it? Are they living it? Because without that sense of authenticity and without that passion, raw musical technique, whether a guitar, singing bass, keys, whatever, I don't have a lot of time for it.
No, and we were just talking about this. Glenn, Dane and I, we were just going through this. We had a gentleman on. You may have. It's a Christian metal band from the '90s called Stavesacre. We were talking through with this the other day, and he said, "Man, there's something missing from genuine music." And I understand the TikTok generation and people buy singles and all that, but what you're talking about is I can sit down and start your album, play it from the first track to the 11th, and get something out of this entire thing. That's what music is missing these days, man. So I love that you're spot on what you're saying. Then go ahead.
Absolutely. I mean, to kind of add to that, we talk to a lot of athletes too, the ones that do it at a high level, all the ones we've talked to, they have that passion. They're not just out there, doing it just because they can. They still have a passion for it. They still have a love for it. They're trying to reach the next level, not only in their respective sports, but also as a person. They're trying to get the most out of themselves, and it just in turns makes them great at what they do. So
Wendy
that's a great message.
My wife and I have just in June celebrated 51 years of marriage.
Congrats.
Wow. Of course, most of that, by far, we were together fronting Res Band. And and I just think it's like the difference between having a wife or having a husband and actually being married and wanting to be married and waking up in the morning. It's not about how much money, like so much of art it just gets hacked.
Tossed away.
It gets hacked. It gets chopped up. It becomes an exercise in making a living. And in fact, John Fisher, years ago, writing in CCM magazine, which is not a magazine I mean, it was okay. I mean, I didn't pore over it, but when John wrote, I paid attention, and he's still at it, by the way. He's out in LA. Good man. At one point, he said, "We used to make history. Now we're making a living."
Yes, sir. That's true.
Wow.
Just money, which controls so much. I mean, this is why we ended up Gurr Records. We ended up doing our own indie label, and we'll work with artists we believe in, and we ended up. Res Band was able to, at one point, cut a record deal where we could build our own studio. We literally said we want 2 lump sum payments. And they freaked out. And we said, why? I said, because we want to build our own studio. We're not going to throw 120 or 130 down an hour like we've been doing year after year at pro studios. And we're not going to leave Chicago. We're not going to sacrifice our wives and our kids for the sake of unit sales.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We're not going to do it. And they looked at us and we just said, that's it. And they said 5 albums. And we said 3. And one of them is already finished. And
I love
So,
that.
you know, that's it.
Yeah.
And they went for it. And that was nice. So if I'm sitting next floor up, we have two actually, Tone Zone, Studio A and Studio B, pro studios. I mean, Pop Staples, one of his last albums, he recorded at Tone Zone. So I mean, we Rez began to, and then my solo stuff, and of course Glenn Kaiser, the GKB, three-piece blues rock group. This is where we record. So
Yes,
we're
sir.
able to not just, it's not about control so much as how can we get the passion going, and how can we live in such a way and do what we do without having to depend on the bank.
Yes,
And
sir.
it's always about the bank, and always looking at the clock, and always freaking out about the finances. Uh-uh.
Well, think about Glenn too. What you get to do, Dame, before you take four. It's neat, Glenn, because now there has been a lot of things about there is some positives when it comes to this generation of like dropping singles. You could hypothetically, especially with your pro studio, you could drop a single a week if you wanted to, and
Yeah.
putting out great music. Thankfully, it's like you have great talent, great art, stuff that all respect to all musicians. So if we really want to hear, you could put something
Yeah.
out every week if you wanted to, and that's
Yeah.
awesome. You know, go ahead, Dane. So
Yeah, Glenn, to that, you kind of touched on it a little bit. Now that we're getting to the end of 2023 here, getting ready to go into 2024, what's on the horizon for you for this next year as a musician and with all your bands and all your ventures?
Well, I just found out I'm going to Alaska for a week, and I'm going to
Nice.
do a music workshop for some folks up there, as well as a concert. Um, I've got a number of things going. I'll be down in New Orleans. There's a cigar box guitar festival that goes on. I'm actually not playing at that. Another friend of mine, who as a matter of fact built me what's called a Wiesenborn guitar. That's a whole other story. Surprised me. I had no idea he did it, was going to do it. He's going to have me come down, and we'll do a gig there, and probably do a couple songs on a Sunday morning in their fellowship. But I love NOLA. I've been to New Orleans many, many times. So I'll be going down doing that. There are 3 albums in the can. One is full on cigar box guitar. I don't know how to explain it. It's very bluesy, and it's basically cigar box guitar, sometimes harmonica, a bit of vocal. That album's done. I'm not sure when we're going to put it out, but it's done. Just needs to be mixed. Second album, the working title's Ain't No Bars Around My Heart. You know, I've been a jail and prison chaplain, volunteer chaplain for years and years. And I wrote about 6 songs coming back from Ohio. Chaplain buddy of mine, we would sometimes do 2 prisons a day, doing concerts and sharing what the Lord had done in our lives. And I started thinking in my head, what if I was locked up for the rest of my life? What if I was sitting somewhere for 30 years, you know, behind bars? And I've done so many gigs all around the world in prisons and jails, and I understand a lot of the situation as it is. And all of a sudden, I end up writing these lyrics. So if you didn't know that that's what I was doing with these songs, you may not know what stimulated the lyrics. But I wrote about 6 songs like that. Ended up with an album full, recorded everything. I think I'm going to re-record 1 song, and then that album's some background singers, got to have a B3 on a few things. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like blues worship or something. It's a lot of it's vertical lyrics, but it's what do people need to hear if they're sitting behind bars. And of course, you don't have to be sitting behind literal bars to be a prisoner.
Yes,
you know.
Yes, sir.
The third album I don't want to talk much about, because a lot of people are going to go nuts, and they're going to go nuts in my inbox.
Okay, fair enough.
You know,
fair
I'm in
enough.
Facebook, I'm in Instagram, and all the rest of it.
Yes, sir.
There was an album full of songs that I wanted to do for a long time, and there's one bro who, once he finishes up his bits, we can go ahead and mix it, and then we'll publicize it. And that'll actually probably be the first of these 3 albums to be released. So I'm always writing.
Yes, sir.
I'm writing blogs all the time. I'm just about to do a new site. I'm ultimately moving from WordPress over to Wix. And I got tired of the sleaze ads. I got tired of, I get free sites. They throw all kinds of cha-cha up there, and I'm like,
Yes, sir.
So,
You're right.
I'm active online. I do a whole lot on Instagram, and I'll be doing a lot with Wix with my website, and keeping it simple. And articles about everything under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about guitars and building cigar box guitars. I talk about being in the woods. I spend a lot of time, or I have over the years, and not much recently. Talk about family, share bits of my own testimony. I've got just tons of web links, different ebooks I've written and stuff. So there's no end to it. It's
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you've got such an amazing passion and so much to share and so much to talk about, I'm so glad, man. I think the more
Yeah.
time goes on, the more we need to hear voices like yours. And I made a note of this when I told Dean. I said, Glenn, I mean it when I say I personally, I know it was only a chip in your catalog. I've been listening for 20 years, and it's only a drop in the bucket, right, of your awesome work. When you did when I knew the Prison album was coming, I said, man, I think you might have even said this in kind of an interview I was watching. You're kind of like, hey, I might have been one or two bad decisions away from being locked up myself. And your humility you talked about,
Yeah.
I can't say how much I appreciate that. We have a friend that does prison ministry as well. And there's something about that humility that, yes, I'm with you.
Yeah.
And it's like, why judge them? I could be in the same situation, maybe a couple lucky breaks, away from being in the same decision ourselves. So Glenn, thank you for
Yeah.
doing that. That's something that the world needs to hear. And I'm
Yeah.
excited to hear that. To be honest, above everything else, I'm excited to hear that the most, man, honestly, so. And it'll all be good. So I made him speechless. Did I lose you, Glenn?
Well, basically, I'm just sitting around doing nothing. But no, I can't. None of us knows how much time we have left. And
Yeah.
I say one day at a time a lot, and I mean it, because that's how I live. It's how I 12-stepping is not a bad idea. And at the end of the day, digging through scripture every day and really listening and speaking, interacting, in
Yeah.
prayer, hanging with people, many of whom are pretty broken and pretty hurting. And of course, you don't always pick that up when you're hanging with people. You know what I mean? Because people can be comedians. They can hide behind quoting scripture.
Mhm.
The devil quotes scripture, and
Yes,
he's
sir.
still the devil. And there's a lot of hurting people out there in the weeds. I mean, I meet people all the time in the music scene. Just
Yeah.
pro musicians they can't maintain a relationship for very long. So much addiction and so forth. So even people that have money coming out their ears, there's a whole lot of people that they figured it out a long time ago that that's not the answer to the real need of the heart and
You're
the
right.
soul. And so I'm trying to do music and write stuff to connect. I always think of that Sistine Chapel. How can we make
Yeah.
how can I make connection, which I do, and
Yes,
and
sir.
how can I help others
Yeah.
make connection? And I think the honesty factor, again, I have to get back to that. It's if that comes out, whether it's I mean, you can draw a stick man and whatever, you can do music, whatever. You can be Jesus was a carpenter. There you go. And I build stuff out of, found object guitars out of junk. Put a couple
Yeah.
strings on and play slide. It just,
Do it with
again,
the
it's the
heart.
heart, it's the passion.
Mhm.
And how can I connect with people? And also, how can I show people have the guts and have the courage to be rejected?
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to kiss up to folks, not with a chip on your shoulder or an attitude. That's not what I mean. And I'll often pull out what's called a diddly bow. It's a one stringer. I had some friends call me up to Wisconsin, and they asked me to speak and do some music at a group that there's about 5 groups that come together to do a shelter for homeless folks up there about 6 months out of the year, and they asked me to be the keynote speaker at their annual meeting. And the guy says, "Look, bring a couple of cigar box guitars, bring a diddly bow, and play music." I thought, "Oh, okay," because we're involved. One of the things we do in our church here is one of the largest shelters in Chicago, homeless shelters. A lot of homeless folks. And so I get up there and I whip out this one string. I don't know. I would take the time to explain it, but it's just this tiny little one string guitar
Mhm.
with a
Yes, sir.
stick-on pickup. Plug it in my amp, pull out a slide and do a song, you know. And of course, all the cameras come out. Everybody's like, what? You know, and my standard rap is it's not what you got, it's what you do with it.
So good. Yeah, you're
It's what
spot
you
on,
do
Glenn.
with it.
Yeah, you're spot on, man.
Absolutely.
You've done a lot, man. I say that. So, Glenn, I'm going to transition because I'm getting chills, and Dane knows this. I've been chomping at the bit for a long time, Glenn. When I approached you, I was like, he's like, just ask him. When I finally approached you, I was like, okay, here we go. So there's a segment, Glenn, that we're going to transition to. I'm going to make you laugh a lot. We have a keynote segment of every episode that we do called Rapid Fire. No, we always keep it fun and PG. We always do, but we get a little weird for a second. You're going to love this. We get fans from across the world that give us questions to ask our guests. Imagine for a minute like reality doesn't exist, past or present, maybe even celebrities or musicians or actors that are dead come back alive for the segment. Anything's possible. Okay, so it's going to have a little fun. There's no wrong answer, Glenn. Me and Dane bet lunch, so if I win what I think you're going to say, Dane gives me lunch. If Dane wins, I give him lunch. We bet on what we think you're going to say. No wrong answer. You go with the heart, okay? So. Okay. Ready? So first question. Obviously, you've been in the ranks of a lot of great musicians, you included. So they call you up and says, hey, we're going back to mid-'80s when we need you to actually do a duet for a WOW gospel type CD type thing, right, back in the day. We want you to do a duet with one of these two great singers. You get to pick. They're both great, but you can cut a track with Larry Norman, like another one, or cut a track with Phil Driscoll. Who do you want to cut this track with?
Driscoll. I met Phil years ago, and again, a lot of passion.
Yes, sir. Okay, I had you for Phil. I had him. Never. If you haven't, Dane, go check him out. He's great. But Dane, who'd you have on that one, man?
Norman. I had Norman on that one.
Yeah. I thought you did, man. So I got you by one, Dane. So next one, this is a little twist. Obviously, this reference gets thrown a lot for guitarmanship, but we're going back to the 80s again. And two of these guitarists, well, actually 70s because of timing, they say, hey, Glenn, we want to sit down and play you in a game of chess. Randomly, they want to play you in chess after a gig. You can play chess against Clapton or Stevie Ray. Who do you want to play chess against?
Stevie Ray.
Let's go. I'm 2 for 2. I'm crushing it, man. Let's go. Dan, how about you?
Oh, yeah. I had Stevie Ray on that one. Definitely.
Okay. Got you. So, Glenn, obviously from your decades of music, I picked up on it during Blues Heaven. A lot of the 90s stuff really stood out to me. So we're going to go back to 94. Obviously, that time frame of music, a lot of kind of grunge, but still have the blues thing popping. Two of these movies are being made. They say, Glenn, we want you to cut the concept album. We want you to be the background instrumental music for one of these two movies. You can be the background music for Above the Law, classic Steven Seagal movie, or you can be the background for the original Bloodsport. Above the Law or Bloodsport, which one do you want to make the background soundtrack for?
Bloodsport.
Let's go. I am killing it, man. I'm 3 for 3, Dan. How about you, man? Yeah, that one.
That's some Bloodsport on that. Yeah. Bloodsport on that.
How cool would that be? I can actually, Glenn, I can picture Rain Dance while Van Damme was fighting, like the Kumite thing. I could picture Rain Dance and that. I'm just saying, man. If there's a remake, let's get on it, okay? I'm just saying. So let's go. I love it, man. So 2 more. So check this out. We're gonna go back again in time, and you are writing songs, and 2 of these songs, somehow you make these songs. Obviously, you have a great catalog, no disrespect for that, but you get to be responsible for writing one of these 2 iconic songs in rock history. You can be responsible for writing Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, or you can be responsible for Stairway to Heaven. Both amazing. Which one would you rather be accredited for?
I gotta go with Floyd.
Let's go. 4 for 4, Dane. Let's go, Dane. How about you, man?
Oh, yeah, I had Floyd because I could see you writing that. I could see you being in that space. It's pretty good.
Got it. So right now you owe me lunch, Dane. I got 4, you got 3. So Glenn, he might time me on this one. Here's the last one, okay? It's 2025. They're making a Lifetime movie about Glenn Kaiser's body of work. They're going back through your entire career. You get to pick one of these 2 awesome dudes to play the movie. Both scrapping, handsome fellas just like you, but you get to pick. You can have John Mayer play you in this movie, or Johnny Lang play you in the Glenn Kaiser biopic. Who you going with?
I would have, that's hard, but I think I'd have to go for Johnny.
Let's go. I'm 5 for 5. I have went 5 for 5 today, Dane. How about you, man?
Oh,
No, I missed that one. So,
Yeah,
man,
I love it. I had
I'll
to.
send you the ramen. I'll send you those ramen noodles right away.
Let me get those Taki ramens, Dane. So, Glenn, thank you, man. Just a little thing we do called Rapid. Hopefully, in interviews in the past, that's still something different for you, okay? So, I love it, man. So, when the Johnny Lang biopic comes out about Glenn Kaiser's life while he's doing the blood sport thing, you're welcome, Glenn. I already gave you the idea, okay? So,
There you go.
Dane, go ahead, man. So,
In this last segment, Glenn, we call it open mic. We open the floor up to our guests. I mean, you've said so much tonight that has inspired us and stuff I'll take away. I have a page full of notes here because of what you said. But is there, something to some of the younger listeners? Are there any maybe words of wisdom that you can give to them to maybe help them on their path, to maybe inspire them to, do and be their best in life?
well, what I would say, thank you. What I would say, y'all, is until I open my life up to the fact and the reality that there's a risen Savior, and until I started following Jesus as Lord of my life, really walking with Him daily, probably what my friends thought kind of were the sort of the fake God. It's so much kissing up to people, and then of course when people accepted me, I was happy, but when they didn't, I was bumming, or when I ran out of dope, what I mean, whatever it was, right? Maybe they didn't like the particular band I was in at the time or the music that we were doing, and it's like my world crashed on me. You know what I mean? Jesus isn't like that. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. He didn't change, and I needed to change, and so I just, it's so easy to get caught up in the vibe of, what do my friends think? Do they accept me? Am I cool? Am I hip? Am I whatever? You know what I mean? Am I Riz? And I ain't Riz. I mean, I'm way past being so. But there was a time when that's all that mattered to me, and I have to tell you that it was a pretty depressing time in my life. And it's part of the reason I went further down the hole in addiction, dope, booze, girl after girl, situation after, and band after band. What people don't know too is sometimes, or if they haven't read through a few times I've talked about it, but I was between the time I was 13 and 18, I think I counted up like a dozen or more, 16 different bands. They didn't kick me out. I quit because I could never be satisfied. It reminds me of an old Muddy Waters song, "Can't Be Satisfied." And that was the truth. I couldn't be.
wow.
Nothing worked. 3 bands and 2 girlfriends at one time. That got real confusing. And I finally just bailed. I just had to stop. And but when you're an addict, you can't stop those things, whatever you're addicted to. So anyway, I just think that for younger people, if you learn anything from older people like me, geezers,
No, sir. No, sir.
It's the fact that there's reality, and then there's what you wish reality was, and they're not always the same thing. And so, if you're living a fictional life, you're living in a fantasy, and sooner or later that bubble's going to pop. And man, for me, I was that close to death. I mean, several times, and the lights came on, and when they came on, and I realized there's a God who loves me, and Jesus is reaching into my life, and all of a sudden, purpose and meaning, and what am I supposed to be doing? I mean, it sure isn't hopping into bed again and again and getting loaded more and jumping from band to band, and there's no stability, there's no sanity, there's no peace, and so that began to change, and I'm at this point in my life. I just wrote a blog recently. I'm more content, and I wouldn't use that word loosely, by the way, or easily, but I think I'm more content at this point in my life than I've ever been. And I spend a fair bit of my time going in behind bars and hanging out with really broken people. And the truth is, they did haul me in, but they couldn't keep me because they didn't have enough on me. That's
Yes,
the only
sir.
reason I didn't end up behind bars.
Man.
Wow.
And Glenn, that's what I'm saying. Dane and I, when we, Dane and I, it's, we say it every time we mention someone in your caliber, Glenn, you do this amazing thing where you bring people together. You have a message of hope. And what I like about you, which we also do on this show too, we respect people of all kind of backgrounds of faith and all that. We're very, very proud of and we respect what you stand for. But you do it in this way where it's about bringing people together. It's not about telling why they're wrong. There's something so potent and powerful about saying, "Hey, I'm not here to judge. I'm here to open my arms to you." And the world needs so much of that these days, Glenn. And I'm just so glad that you're still spreading that message that we need to hear of, "Hey, I got a place for her. Come with me." I love that about you, Glenn.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Above your music and your talent, which is phenomenal. Like, I wish I had 1% of your talent, Glenn, and then the way you spend it is helping others. You're not even talking the whole episode, Dane. We can break this down. Your entire episode has been about how you're helping others. A very accomplished, successful rockin' musician, and your biggest thing is, how do I help others? I can't say enough kudos to that, Glenn. So you're literally one of a kind, man. Appreciate you. So
yeah, absolutely. And two, I mean, with the catalog you've put out, I mean, you just go give a listen to a lot of your lyrics, and that helps out a ton of people with whatever they're feeling. And for you to even do more beyond that, like you say, with your blogs, with the books you've written, the things you've done, and you have a passion for it, you can continue to reach people, not only in the days you're above ground, but all of us, all of us are going to be below ground one day. You're going to live on, and talk about living forever. I mean, that message is going to carry on. So congratulations.
Wow.
And also thank you.
Yep. By the way, earlier on, I didn't choose Larry Norman, but Larry was an incredible songwriter and a great lyricist. And, one of those great lines, "only visiting this planet." I mean,
yes, sir.
That's true for everybody. That's true for
yes,
all
sir.
of us. So what are we going to do? One of those signature song for me for a long time, I wrote a blues tune many, many years ago. "If I leave this world tomorrow, I want to leave a little love behind." I mean, that's it.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And that's, again, Glenn, as we try to land this plane, because you'd have to stop me. I could go on for hours. Glenn, I got to say a couple things in closing. I meant what I said when I tracked it down. It's an honor, Glenn. We've had a privilege of interviewing lots of musicians, and you've always been one of our bucket list, because I love what you stand for, and I think you take being a great musician and having a kind of a specific belief system, and you blend them together. You make it cool. I look at people like you, Disciple, POD, some of these bands where they take what their message is, and they are great musicians, and they bring it together. And I love that. There's something, it just appeals to me, especially now that I'm getting older. I say that, Dane laughs, in my late 30s, and we're establishing life. I look for people that, like, this is who I am, and they don't run from it. So, Glenn, I'll say this in closing. Thank you. We ask you, maybe we can make it happen again sometime. Maybe when some new stuff drops, and we won't pick at that. Absolutely. We won't pry. But maybe in the future we can have you back on again sometime if you're open to it. Okay. So
my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course, Glenn. Well, Glenn, thanks for blessing us with your time. It's a true honor. Bucket list for us. We'll get out of your hair. We'll catch up and get this out to the world very soon. And you have a happy holiday season, Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay.
And Merry Christmas, by the way.
Hey, Merry Christmas to you.
Take care, brother. You have a good evening. Okay. It's a pleasure seeing you. Thanks, Glenn. Dane, I'm telling you, man, there's not enough. The language is not big enough to say the amount of awesome things about him. What do you think of him, Dane?
Yeah, I mean, like I say, whenever you introduce me to a lot of these artists that you've, followed for years and years, I go and listen to them and I think, wow, this is amazing stuff. And then you meet them and you talk to them and you're just blown away, and you become a fan of not just their art, but them as a person, which is even greater because, as everybody's listened to then and has seen how much knowledge has been brought along through this whole process, coming from, something a little bit darker in life to finding Jesus, to living his passion and doing it with so much, doing it and so great and having so much zeal for it,
high
and
caliber.
still in his prime, at 70 years old, still in his prime. I mean, I can't wait for the new stuff to drop and to go through the whole catalog and start listening more and more. So I thank him. Couldn't thank him enough for, this interview tonight and the things that he's written and the message he's passing along.
I think about this angle.
You're welcome.
Go ahead.
Thanks for inviting me, and you're welcome. Look, every now and then, and honestly, it's been rare, like boom, right? But I'm walking down the hall. This is years ago, and I'm walking down the hallway, and out of nowhere, and I didn't even know what the context was, what was going on in my life at the time, but out of nowhere, the still small voice of the Spirit, you know, Glenn, anybody, people, can end up being extremely successful in whatever area of life, music, you know, art, whatever it is, whatever, architecture, whatever, but end up being an absolute lousy human being.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it's an either or, I'll take the human being any day of the week. I mean, it's just any day of the week. And I often tell people I put my pants on. You do put your left leg in first, right? No, but you know, I mean, really, we just.
Yes, sir.
When I go home tonight, I'm going to be tired, and I'm going to think, do I really want to brush my teeth? And I got to floss too. Oh, brother.
Day-to-day decisions, man.
You know, no, you got to floss. You got to brush your teeth. You got to use the mouthwash. Do all the stuff.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Besides, Wendy will be happier. So there you go. And then, all right, you guys. God bless. I got to actually between you and me. All right. So I'm going to go join my wife, who's at the front door doing front door security and phones. I'll sit in with her for a little while, and then when she's done, I'll get her upstairs, and then I'll come back down, and I get to do the first floor men and women's bathrooms. So there you go. That's what rock stars do. We do toilets.
Man, Glenn's always working. Well, brother, will you take care, man? It was great.
God bless you guys. Good night.
Yes, sir. We'll be in touch. Okay. Thanks, Glenn. You're welcome to drop off, man. Dane, he's phenomenal, dude. I love him, Dane. So, and there's a thing I would just let him talk. Like, I don't care how long it takes. Let him talk. He's awesome, you know?
Yeah. I mean, a wealth of knowledge, as the saying goes.
It's crazy that he's 70 years old and it's still it's like he's a rock star. But I got to say this before I didn't want to interrupt him. You know, we made this clear. Everybody's welcome here. You know, we respect his faith, whether that maybe this or maybe it's, you know, Buddhist, whatever it may be. We respect all faiths. We've talked about that, right? We welcome everyone on the show. I remember I was watching this interview. We had our buddy Dan on from Red one time, and they were sitting there talking to Randy, the guitarist, and he's like, "Man, you know, people don't say, why are you a Buddhist rocker or, you know, this rocker or that rocker? It's just, hey, I'm a musician that has a viewpoint." Like, basically the idea is whatever your faith is, I respect that. Whatever it is, you know, he tends in this direction. Maybe it's a different direction. That's cool. He's talking about being a good person behind that. Hey, regardless of all of that, I want to leave this world being a great person. And he's a great musician. So it's like, we don't have to have this, well, are you in this box or that box? Are you a great musician? Are you a great person? That's what I think we should be bringing together more. I love his message and the way he does it, but it's more about how are you treating others, right? I don't know. It's something about the way he connects those dots. Doesn't shy from what he is, but also doesn't disrespect anybody else at the same time. You know what I mean, Dave? So
yeah, definitely. And I think, like he said, when he comes from that background where, you know, he's seen the bad and he's living the good, and he's seen both perspectives, and he knows, hey, things could get worse and things could get better. Just let me stay the course. Let me be who I am to myself, be genuine, and be a good person. It'll shine through not only my work, but the people I meet, they'll see it.
Wow. I love him. So anyway, so I don't even know how to stop, Dane, because it's such a wealth of knowledge. You guys, we'll drop the links. If you haven't listened to Glenn Kaiser, you're doing yourself a disservice. Some of the best guitar work that you're going to hear going back 30 or 40 years. I mean it when I say, you think about Robin Ford, Glenn Kaiser, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray, all in the same vein. And I say that openly. He is in that breadth of musicianship. Just amazing. Absolutely. Johnny Lang. So we'll put the links out. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, Glenn Kaiser Band, the Resurrection Band, they go by the Res Band for short. Many great like pieces of work from the 70s, 80s, and you see this time shift of like 70s rock, a little bit of 80s kind of Depeche almost, a little bit of like Dire Straits. 90s, we hit that kind of like slow burn blues, acoustic blues, and now he's doing a little bit of the ZZ Top thing. It's all across the spectrum. So if you're a fan of any type of rock and roll, you're going to get a lot. And you want a good message where it like lifts you up, Glenn Kaiser's your guy. Absolutely. So thanks, Glenn. And we'll close on that. Dan, we got two more tonight, Dane. a little segment. Our buddy Randy from Hunt Harder, Nobody Cares. I like the hoodie, by the way, Dane. Looks like that's something
Yeah,
that
I
we're
like
going to
that.
showcase that Randy got us. Randy's got a great thing he's doing for veterans. He's a great role model for fathers. Does a lot of work with veterans, and he's a pro hunter. So he's next. And then we end the night with our buddy Willie from DC Talk and Tracy Lawrence and Leanne Rhymes.
Yep.
So a couple more for it. We'll take a quick breather. Don't forget, as always, that we love you. And Dane.
Thank you for listening.